Good evening, guys. Good evening, ma'am. So, I'm Jason Diaz, and tonight I'll be presenting to you my journal review about this journal article entitled "The Impact of HRIS or Human Resource Information System Usage on Organizational Efficiency and Employee Performance." And it was conducted on Turkey, specifically in Ankara and Istanbul. And they only limited the research towards the industrial and banking sectors, so who actually uses the HRIS most of the time. So it was authored by Yilmaz et al. At the year 2017. So I'll just make my review brief and concise. So to start with, so let's go with the introduction. So author's motivation or interest for conducting the research. So as I've read their introduction, so with the growing or rapid growth of modernization, digitization, and implementation of or accumulation of internet information systems, such as management information systems, towards the processes and transactions of different organizations and businesses. So the authors find it interesting to determine the real impact of these systems towards the overall efficiency or overall performance of the organizations. At the same time, they would want to determine the real impact of these systems towards the performance of their employees. And of course, they would want to determine whether there are variations on the impact of these systems, whether a certain organization has been using it for a longer period or a shorter period of time. So to discuss it further, so let's proceed with the SOP. So SOP, when we say SOP or the statement of the problem, it is one of the core or fundamental part of the research paper, because these are the questions or key points that you are trying to find answers. So why you conducted the research. So here in the study, so they have these three major statement of the problem. So in an SOP, actually, by doing your SOP, you can already determine the statistical tools or methods or approach that you'll be using. So by doing your SOP, you can already determine it. And it's, of course, the SOP determines your organizational objectives. So in the study, so they have these three major SOP. First, is there a significant relationship between HRIS usage status and organizational efficiency? Second, is there a significant relationship between HRIS usage status and individual employee performance? And another one, is there a significant relationship between individual employee performance and organizational efficiency? So actually, normally when we are conducting a research, so we have at least I think 4 to 5 SOPs. So key questions or key points that you are trying to determine in your research. So usually when we are doing a research paper, so we usually include the question, what are the socio-economic profile of the respondents, or what are the socio-demographic profile of the respondents. So that's actually part of the SOP. So however, in this study, they did not emphasize it. Actually, when we're conducting research, so we usually include that. So what are the socio-economic profile of the respondents in terms of age, gender, religion, so on and so forth. So in conducting a research, so by reading this SOPs, you can already determine the statistical analysis or method that you're going to apply. For example, in their first SOP, is there a significant relationship between HRIS usage status and organizational efficiency? So actually, they are trying to determine the variation. So in terms of variations, we can use statistical tools such as t-test or standard deviation. So those tests can be used to determine the variation of the given data based on their mean. So another one is there a significant relationship between HRIS usage status and individual performance here? So you from the word significant relationship, so that is actually correlational study siya, correlational. It's because and HRIS and individual play performance yung mga variables. So by that you can see that most probably we can opt to choose either bivariate Pearson correlation, or we can use the simple linear regression determining the significant relationship. However, in conducting a research, I usually prefer to use a simple linear regression because for me it is much more accurate, especially it can determine the what we call the regression equation. So we can actually really dissect the level of impact of a certain variable towards another variable. And the same with the last SOP, is there a significant relationship between individual employee performance and organizational efficiency? So individual employee performance and organizational efficiency, so still correlational study siya, correlational approach. So you could either opt to choose bivariate Pearson correlation, or you can opt to choose simple linear regression. So let's proceed. So hypothesis, actually when I say hypothesis, it is the educational guess or educated guess or educated answer towards your SOP. So in a hypothesis, actually in conducting a research, we do have two types, the alternative hypothesis and the null hypothesis. But actually personally, when conducting or doing a research or a thesis paper, I usually use the null hypothesis because it's better to have something to disprove in your paper. So I prefer to use null hypothesis compared to alternative. At the same time, by using this null hypothesis, it is much easier to determine what statistical tool to be applied. For example, in a null hypothesis, if you're trying to disprove a certain hypothesis, it's better to be null. For example, if you're using the ANOVA or analysis of variance, mas better na null hypothesis yung gamit. So here in the study, it is actually they use the alternative hypothesis, so it's not null. So first hypothesis nila, or so you can read it here. You can read it naman. Organizational efficiency varies significantly depending on the use of human resource information system in the business. So kung i-reconstruct natin siya or rephrase into a null hypothesis, so we can say that organizational efficiency does not vary significantly on the use of human resource information system in the business. So pag null. However, the researchers use the alternative hypothesis. So the same with the other hypothesis. If you wanted to turn it to a null hypothesis, you can just use the reverse idea. So for example, in the last hypothesis, usage rate of human resource information system in the business affects organizational efficiency. If you'll try to use the null, usage rate of human resource information system in the business does not affect the organizational efficiency. So for me personally, I usually use the null hypothesis. However, it depends on the researcher. So let's proceed. So meron pa palang isang hypothesis. So hypotheses are the educated guess or answers towards your SOP. So let's proceed to operational framework. Actually, I'm just jumping on the important parts of the research. Actually, when we're conducting research, there are too many parts, especially in chapter 1. So chapter 1, it also includes the definition of operational definition of terms, the theoretical framework, the scope and limitations, the objective. So however, in this report, so I just pointed out the most important parts of the research. So operational framework. So operational framework, it is the framework of your research. So it is not adapted. It could be adapted into another theoretical or operational framework from other research. However, usually when we are using operational or conceptual framework, it is unique. So meaning the paradigm is unique in that research. So actually, operational framework determines the or explains the relationship of the variables. So what are the variables in a research? In a research, we have two major variables. So it could either be a independent or dependent variable. So there's independent variables. So variables that are independent affecting the dependent variable or the explanatory variables. So here in the research, so you can see it in their paradigm, HRIS, to impact toward employee performance and impact toward organizational efficiency. So here the dependent variable here is the organizational efficiency and employee performance. So meaning they are being affected by the HRIS usage rate. So meaning the HRIS, so Human Resource Information System, is the independent variable. So independent variable meaning it determines the behavior of the dependent variable. So meaning it affects the dependent variable. So that is how operational framework is presented in a paper. So it will try to present your variables and their influences or impact towards each other. So operational framework, then present your operational paradigm. So operational paradigm, so this is the paradigm example ko. So of course, next part of the research paper, chapter 1 is the chapter 1, next one is the chapter 2, which is the RRL. So actually I did not include the RRL already, so I'll just jump on the chapter 3, which is the methodology. So methodology. So in the methodology, first, research tool. So in the research, in the journal, I mean, they use the questionnaire. Actually, questionnaire is the widely used research tool in most research, in most thesis papers. However, you can opt to choose interview methods. So a research tool could either be an interview method or a questionnaire. So usually it's much easier to use questionnaire because if you're going to use the interview method, so it's quite time consuming, especially in dissecting the results. So in the research tool, they use the questionnaire. Actually, in their questionnaire, it is composed of 3 sections. First part is the socioeconomic profile of the respondents. The second section is the determination of the level of the usage rate of the organization. Usage rate ng organization sa HRIS. And last section is the determination of the organizational efficiency, individual employee performance. So next part, respondents. So respondents in the research, they had 160 respondents. So question may arise, no, how do we determine number of respondents in the research? Actually, there are 2 types of population. So the known and unknown population. So when we say of known population, it is much easier to determine the sample size, especially given the formulas in solving the sample size. However, it is difficult to determine the sample size if the certain population is unknown. So actually we have different methods in determining the sample size for an unknown population. So we could opt to choose the Sloven's formula or the I forgot the other one, the Crocans formula actually. But personally, I usually use the Sloven's formula. Just like with the research paper I conducted before. So it is about the labor migrants here in General Santos City. So labor migrants, so I went to PSA, formerly NSO, and the same time sa DOLE to gather data whether they have the exact amount of the labor migrants here in General Santos City. However, both bureaus and departments said that they don't have the exact number of those respondents, or I mean those labor migrants here in General Santos City. So I use the unknown population. So I use the Sloven's formula. In Sloven's formula, so you'll just sa formula you'll just need to determine your margin, the level of your margin of error, and for usually that's 5% margin of error, pinaka-accurate na yan, and 95% confidence level. So actually, pag mataas yung confidence level and mas mababa yung margin of error, the greater the number of respondents. So I suggest when you're conducting a research, mas better na gamitin nyo yung respondents na known yung population for much easier data gathering. Next one is the research local. Of course, the research local here is the Ankara, Istanbul sa Turkey. So the next part is one of the most important part, the statistical analysis and treatment. So statistical analysis, just like what I've said earlier. So by reading or by developing your SOP, you can already determine what statistical analysis you'll be using. So here in the journal, so they use the t-test, regression analysis, and Likert scale. So t-test, actually the t-test was used to determine the variation of the organizational efficiency and individual employee performance based on the usage rate of HRIS in a certain organization. For example, is there a variation whether a certain company has been using the HRIS for 15 years compared to other organization that has been using the HRIS for just like 5 years? So they use the t-test to determine if there are significant variations. Next one is the regression analysis. Regression analysis, here in the study, they used regression analysis to determine the significant relationship between the HRIS and organizational efficiency. And another one is to determine the significant relationship between individual employee performance and organizational efficiency. So actually, it was not stated in the paper whether what type of regression analysis it was. However, by just looking at the variables, so you can see that dalawang variable. So first is the organizational efficiency and HRIS, so that is bivariate. So kung bivariate siya, so using the simple linear regression analysis siya, that is simple linear regression. So same with the other one, so simple linear regression siya actually. So simple linear regression. Actually, if you find it hard to use this regression analysis, you can opt to choose the Pearson correlation, which is much easier. So you'll just determine the p-value. So p-value greater than 0.05, that means that there is no significant relationship between the variables. However, regression analysis, specifically the simple linear regression, is much more accurate, especially if you're trying to determine the extent of the impact of the independent variable towards the dependent variable. And another tool is the Likert scale. Actually, Likert scale, it is a quanti-quali tool. Usually Likert scale is used in questionnaires, so you can see it there. Rate it from 1 to 5, so stating the legends. So actually that is for quanti. Actually, Likert scale is used in data gathering, so it's not that talaga na masabi natin na statistical analysis siya for determination of results. So Likert scale, so usually it ranges from 3 to 5 scale of ordinal. So for example, you're trying to determine the impact of HRIS. For example, 1 to 5 na rating, 1 is the highest and 5 is the lowest. So for example, sa 5 nimo, that is no impact, 1 is very high impact. So that's how we use the Likert scale. Next one is reliability test. Actually, this reliability test, these are only used in comprehensive research papers, yung mga high level na research papers. Usually in collegiate and mga undergrad research paper don't use reliability test, so as far as I know. So I've been a panel for thesis defense so many times, and I don't usually see a reliability test on undergrad papers in collegiate levels. It's because reliability test is for mga comprehensive na research, especially yung mga research conducted by the government. So doon na sila ginagamit. So when you say reliability test, the test used to eradicate the what we call the collinearity in a data. So there are sometimes may mga data na exhibit the same characteristics. So meaning dapat eradicate natin yon. So let's put into example na lang siguro the gender and sex. So in the term sa socio-economic profile ng respondents mo, however, they're somewhat correlated with each other. So meaning pwede ka na magamit na yung isa lang, wag na yung gender. Pwede na sex yung gamitin, so male or female. So however, sa gender mas mas madami siyang so it could either siyempre may LGBT na tayo eh. So yun. However, if sa reliability test nila, they use the EFA. Actually sa reliability test natin, meron tayong CFA and EFA. In the EFA, so dapat, actually it was not stated in the journal whether what type of EFA it was. So it could either be Varimax, orthogonal rotation, Quartimax. So in the research, in the journal here, sa journal nila, it was not stated. So just also remember, reliability test is used to remove the multicollinearity in a research paper. So proceed tayo sa sige. So of course, after the chapter 3, so let's next chapter is the chapter 4, which is the analysis and interpretations of the results na. So of course, I skip it na. So proceed na ako sa conclusions. So after the analysis was conducted and the data were analyzed and interpreted, so they were able to develop their conclusions. So conclusion number 1, the research shows that there is a positive relationship between HRIS usage rate and organizational efficiency in personal performance, and HRIS oriented personal performance in their organization. Meaning, with the result of their regression analysis, most probably the R squared there sa regression analysis is 80% higher. And another one is the p-value there could either be less than 0.05, meaning positive yung relationship ng variables. So next one, a positive relationship exists between organizational efficiency and personal performance and HRIS oriented personal performance. So yun. So actually yun na sa ilang SOP. So actually based sa kanilang hypothesis, they use the alternative. So wala siya na disprove sa paper nila. So approved na yung hypothesis nila. So actually that's why I prefer to use null hypothesis in conducting a research. It's because it's better that you have something to disprove in your paper. However, it depends on the researcher and what anong gamitan niya method. And I think that's all, and thank you for listening.